All right, grade 10s, so hopefully you understood scalars and vectors. Today we're going to be moving on to distance versus displacement. Specifically, today we're going to work on distance, and then on Friday we'll be talking more about displacement. So, to be clear, distance and displacement are not the same thing. You may have heard these terms mixed up before, but they are not the same. Each term has a different meaning and describes something different in relation to kinematics and motion. Do not use these terms interchangeably. So if you are talking about distance, make sure you're using the term distance. If you're using the term displacement, you have to be talking about what displacement is. Those two cannot be used to describe the same thing. So like I said, today we're going to focus on distance. So distance is a scalar quality. When we talked about scalars, we know that that means it does not have a direction included in its description. So distance, the definition, it refers to how much total ground an object has covered during its motion. So it's the total amount of ground that an object covered during its motion. So if we want to calculate distance, we simply add the total distances that the person traveled. So we'll look at this little example here of point A, point B, and they're separated by 4 meters. So, example A. What is the total distance if a person traveled from point A to point B? So if we started here at a distance of 0 meters and then got to point B, this tells us this is 4 meters between those 2 points. So the total distance would be 4 meters. Number 2 says if a person traveled from point A to point B, so we went from point A to point B, and then we went back to point A, their total distance traveled would be 8 meters. So we started at 0 meters, we traveled 4 meters to get to point B, and then we traveled that same 4 meters to go back. So 4 plus 4, I'll write that in for you. So 4 plus 4 meters equals 8 meters. That might be the messiest. 4 meters plus 4 meters equals 8 meters. Okay? So to represent distance, we use the symbol d. It is always a lowercase d representing distance. So never would you use this. This does not equal distance, okay? Always lowercase d equals distance. Okay? So if we wanted to represent our answers in a formula style of writing rather than having all this written language and using symbols, so talking example B here, again, these are the same questions, just going to write our answers with symbols rather than full words. So it says, what is the total distance if a person traveled from point A to point B? So again, starting at point A, this would be 0 meters. We get to point B, tells us this is separated by 4 meters. So our distance, our lowercase d, remember it's always a lowercase d, is equal to 4 meters. Number 2 said if a person traveled from point A to point B and back to point A, then their distance, again, lowercase d, would be equal to 8 meters, which is the total of 4 meters on the way there, 4 meters on the way back, equaling to 8. Okay, so that sums up our lesson on distance for today. You should be scrolling down and calculating distance down here. Again, you do not need to submit these practice calculations that are with your notes. They're just for you to work on your skills. So I'll make sure that I post the key the next day so that you can check over and make sure you're understanding. But yeah, so for this assignment, you're using this lovely drawn diagram by yours truly, Miss Graves. So for all of these questions, base it off of this diagram, not the ones above. You won't have all the information here. So again, using this diagram for calculating or figuring out any of your answers 1 through 5.